That was a good one. Did you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
I hope the crinkle crackles got picked up. Good morning, Ronnie.
Good morning. Ooh,
Hmm.
my screen just changed the width of what it looked like.
Oh.
Yeah, I can see your full bookshelf now instead of just like,
Really?
yeah. Well, like I can
I
see
only
the.
see
What do you
like
see? Yeah.
I just
Oh,
boxed in here. Like this is
LOL.
where it ends.
Nope, I get to see it
So
all.
we're using a new platform today so that you all can see us as we're
Yeah.
talking if you feel like it. So we're trying to figure out, the logistics. Hang in there with us. We are a little too far from Gen Z to be considered Gen Z with our tech knowledge. So,
Speak for
at least I
yourself,
am.
Jen. Speak for yourself. Jen's
I'm
a
at that point within.
millennial.
Yeah. When I'm in session with my Gen Zers, it's so embarrassing when I share my screen. Not embarrassing, it's just humbling. When I'm like, do you know how to do this? Because I'm at the point where I know it's just going to waste time. And I'm like, my teachers did this. And I thought they were old.
Yeah, and now
Yeah.
look at
Now
you.
the turns have tabled.
Oh, how they have. So, for those of you who haven't been here before, I'm Ronnie,
And I'm Jen.
and this is Field Guide to Healing Season 2.
Two.
Woo, cue the applause and all the other things.
We have a whole list of fun little things here.
Come on, Jen,
Cue,
give us
cue
something.
the applause. Hold on.
Cue the lies.
This is shocking. Listen. It's probably me. It's probably not the website. But
As we were saying, Jen is not
maybe
Gen
I'm not the best
Z.
one to be.
Wow, that was like a really thick applause.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you, computer generated audience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if y'all are just tuning in for the first time, this is a mental health kind of podcast where Jen and I kind of flesh out different topics through a theme. And this season's theme, if Jen would like to announce, is
Authenticity.
yay!
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to authentically be ourselves, which is really, really scary to do. Even if you are a confident person, there are times when we feel apprehensive. If you're not a confident person, feeling the crushing weight of being perceived just for existing, that can be really hard. So it's figuring out, like, who am I? How can I authentically align myself with who I am? And we believe that step one for that is figuring out how to actually see yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How to see myself through self-attunement.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah. I have to remember the diabolical fingers everyone can see now.
Yeah, dude. I think before we dive into today's topic, we could maybe talk about where we've been, what we've been up to. Our last episode aired June 21st of this past June. And Jen and I took a good long summer's break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not to say that it was a break. We've been working hard, I'd say, in this off season. We had our first pop-up, which was super, super cool. We did Reiki at a Pride event last weekend.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so great to give back to the community. Especially it felt definitely like a good full circle moment from the end of our season to the beginning of our next. But like Jen said, behind the scenes, we've been working really hard. We have been really considering what we want this season to look like and how we can do better. And hopefully, all of you get to experience this along with us as we move forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything, Jen, you would like to say? How was your break? Like, quote unquote, break.
It was great. I moved into a home. So
mm,
that's exciting. Great little business endeavors taking off. Um, Life's feeling pretty good, pretty aligned. So I'm pretty happy with that.
yeah.
How about you, Ronnie?
I would say I did not move. I am where I was physically. As those of you who have been watching maybe the later part of our season can see, Jen and I are in, similar or different locations based off of that. Um, but yeah, the summer went by quick. It is really crazy to kind of be like, wow, here we are. Um, but it felt like a necessary rest from the recording process to kind of plug back into some of our passions and what brought us here in the first place. So, really looking forward to some of our new offerings, one of which will be on YouTube. Jen and I will begin a series of what we like to call fireside chats. Where we will be doing similar yet more loose, I would say, conversations, a little more off the books, more relaxed,
Mhm.
and like shorter content. So keep an eye out for that. We are doing some work for that, and we will be doing some fun forest bathing type things along with that. So that's kind of all of our introductory formal business type things. Um,
Mhm.
where would we like to start with this conversation?
Hmm. I think a good place would maybe be like talking about self attunement, what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so when I say self attunement, where does your mind go, Ronnie? And remember, Ronnie's perspective here is therapist, healer, yoga instructor. So, self attunement, what does that spark for you?
Um, so while I was looking into this and kind of like sitting with these concepts and starting to flesh out what exactly comes to my mind, I thought of maybe some of like the synonyms to this word to kind of parallel. So I thought of like receptive, aware, making harmonious was one that came to
Mm,
mind. And then also just the fact that like self attunement is an action. It's like a doing word. It's an active thing. Um, and when I think of like action, self attunement, when we think of that, it's like ourselves acting and doing things that would result in that attunement or that harmony. So, in this sense, when I think of like our topic, which our title is How to See Myself, Self Attunement, putting that all together makes me think we are doing the attuning process, the harmonizing to see a fuller image of ourselves.
yeah.
So that's
Yes.
yeah.
That feels so good. I love the synonyms that you came up with. So, it's kind of like tuning an instrument,
hmm
but we are the instrument,
Yes, I
and
think
we want to be
we
in harmony. Yeah.
yes. I was gonna say shout out to like season one with this example.
And then something else that I absolutely loved that you said, receptive. So you have to be ready to receive
Mm,
little bits and glimmers of who you are in order to tune yourself, tune your instruments.
yeah, you have to be listening. You have to be listening. Like you have to be looking and like, and I think this is where people can fall into a hairy area, a little sticky stitch, when we think we are like attuning, but we're actually like assessing or like grading ourselves, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So like that fine line between like, ooh, like I'm listening and I'm making little tweaks versus like I am tearing myself down and feeling in place.
Yeah. Can you give an example?
Like an example being Like, I think of, like, say we are doing like some kind of skill set that we're working on, and while we're in it, we are not getting to that the goal or the visualized thing, or like this thing that we're trying to work towards, whatever that is. And we're like with haste, and we're like falling through it, and we're getting frustrated, and like starting to like enter this space of negativity, and your thoughts start to reflect that, and I think your body starts to reflect some of that as well. So like if we're doing any kind of endeavor with frustration building, or any kind of like misattunement happening,
Mm.
it can become one thing, whereas if it is the opposite, or like the different side of the spectrum of that same experience, of like the thoughtful and intentional slowing down, and like listening to what's happening, like that observer versus being in the experience type of thing happening. um
Mm.
so like when we're
Observer versus being in the experience.
Yeah, so like observing it is when we're able to like slow down and see what's happening, and begin making those fine adjustments and those tuning, like kind of starting to really do that embodiment of the attuning, whatever that is, like physically speaking or otherwise, versus the like being in it. So think about like something comes to your mind when you're doing something, oh, I suck. And then we start to be like, oh, wow, I really suck. And we get really caught up in that. That's when like you're like in it. You're too, the water's muddied, you're like mixed in with everything, and like it's hard to not to see,
Yeah.
versus if we are like witnessing externally from that experience, and we see that, I just said I'm stupid. Well, that didn't feel really, that's not like, that doesn't feel like me, and we might view that as like old programming working its way out. So if I view this as like just programming that's working out of my system versus like a truth, I think that can alter the attuning, like the self-attuning that's happening there. Does that make sense? I feel like that was kind of like a ramble of things.
I think it was a needed ramble. It made a lot of sense. And I like the direction you're going into in saying that like self judgment and the hatred is not showing that you're attuned to yourself.
It's
And a
showing the
lot of times
opposite.
it's where, yeah. And I love like the word muddied. Like that's exactly what's going on here. So like a lot of times we think that when we're evaluating ourselves, we're being objective, realistic. We're seeing ourselves, the world will see us, and we're helping ourselves see our mistakes. Things like who was it? I don't know. I think it was Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys have like a famous quote saying that you have to be able to see your mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and like your failures are actually showing you how you can improve. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like a very common thing in the Western world to like negatively assess yourself so you can do better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm not saying that that's not helpful. However, we're not attuned to ourselves when we're looking at ourselves from the lens of judgment,
Yeah.
or if we're like if we are looking at ourselves from the lens of judgment and we feel like we are failing, we are attuned to that failure. We're not attuned to the activity that we're doing, that we only are doing because it feels good for us. It started out as being a joyful experience.
Mm.
And rather than attuning to the joy, we're attuning to the judgment.
Yeah. Mm. And judgment is like hard to perform under. Like when we feel scrutinized and
Yeah.
critical, like it's very demotivating. It doesn't feel good. It's like, ooh, let me just hide this away. Let me tuck this endeavor somewhere where it can't be
Yeah.
seen.
Oh my gosh, I have a core memory of doing like High School Musical just came out. And after they aired it, they were like, stay tuned for like the dance moves, right? And you could like stay like on Disney Channel and they would teach you the dance.
Hmm.
And I was doing it. And I remember my siblings laughing at me, like, why do you want to dance to High School Musical? And like meanwhile, I'm like 8,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I'm
Like,
like,
why don't
duh.
you? I had
Yeah.
so much merch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So that immediately though, I just took that part of myself away. Like I
Mm.
just like never again tried.
Oh, guess what? And all of a sudden, like a crew comes out and we start doing. We're
Wait,
all
wait.
in this together.
So hold on, just like sidebar our episode. Ronnie and I have been trying to do karaoke, getting a group
Yeah,
together. Um,
yeah.
just just be ready. I'm gonna
Oh god.
gotta learn the moves. The embodying is gonna happen now. The attunement to 8-year-old Jen.
Yeah, Jen is about to like complete that life cycle and like right all of the wrongs from that.
I will not become Zac Efron. I will attune to Zac Efron.
You better start mewing, as the kids say.
What is
You
that?
know what mewing is, Jen?
No.
I'm gonna look up the standard definition for you and for all
It
of
seems
our
like you don't even know
viewers.
what mewing
So
is.
mewing is like have you seen like the people like when they are tucking their tongue under and it's like helping to sharpen their jawline?
I have seen this. I
Mm-hmm.
saw it during in the TikTok world during COVID. That was like a thing. I remember.
Yeah, so mewing it's like it gives your teeth more space to like do their thing. But if you
Like
it's like all over
like
the place.
vocal coach wise, like we like do singers try to do this or like why do my teeth need more space in my mouth?
Okay, give me a second, dude.
Is that something that people are getting self-conscious
Ah!
about? Their teeth in their mouth having space?
I don't know.
That's
It's just
sad.
a meme. I don't know. So it is a technique attributed to a British orthodontist, allegedly, named Mike Mew, that involves putting pressure on the roof of your mouth with your tongue, which then like can or allegedly changes the shape of your face. So it like moves some stuff around. Um
I
yeah.
just tried it. 0 out of 10.
Okay, so like I encourage you and our listeners to like look up some photos. It's just like I don't mew. I ain't out here mewing. Um
No judgment if you do.
I'm not. And no judgment if you are. It's just like I don't know. The internet is an interesting place to say the least. And I lost why I brought that up so we can
Oh, I think you're talking about Zac Efron and
Yes.
getting
Sorry, his face
getting his jawline.
he just always looks he always just looks like he's mewing.
Yeah.
Uh
Okay. So I think this will be a good time to give the definitions
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
of self-attunement, and we have stepped it up. No judgment towards the definitions. Merriam-Webster, I'm still coming at you. So I guess there is judgment
Yeah,
there.
there is.
Anyway, we are using Perplexity AI to help us create our definitions this season because it's actually really cool. They take different websites from around the web and they compile definitions and answers for you, and then they give you the list of sources and stuff like that. So I'd rather it compile like a beautiful definition that really is aligned with where we're going, rather than us have to like be like, ew, I hate this.
Yeah.
So, self attunement is the practice of tuning into one's own emotional states, needs, and perspectives. It involves accessing the power of healing, wisdom, and one's higher self by becoming more aware of one's mind, heart, and body. It's also considered a precursor to attuning to others and situations, as it helps individuals tap into their inner strength and achieve clarity.
Mm.
I love this. It's like polarizing in a way. Um, in that, like, in order to figure out who you want to be in space in the world, you have to first figure out who you are and what your strengths are, what makes you feel like you, so that you can show up in those places.
Yeah.
And then the final part of the definition is self attunement is the practice that is essential for developing self awareness and involves acknowledging and engaging with all parts of oneself, including difficult emotions and the inner critic, rather than ignoring or repressing them, which is something that we talked about a lot last season.
Yeah.
Um, by regularly checking in with oneself and being still in thought and body, individuals can better understand their feelings and the driving factors beneath the surface.
Mm.
Mm.
And like when we say regularly checking in, that doesn't mean like 0 to 100. So if you're like never checking in with yourself, like that's not expected to like regular meeting like 3+ times a day. It could be carving out time 1 time a day to check in.
Mm.
So like
Even
really
once a week, like Sundays, like a weekly reset can help.
yeah, literally. Just giving yourself space to like observe like what has happened, how you've experienced it, what that like if there's things that you would like to see different in the future, like just different things that you can kind of begin collecting data essentially, on yourself a
Yeah.
little.
And the cool thing here is like the inner critic, which is what's so scary, and a lot of the time why we turn away from our inner world. Um, but that's just one part, that's one voice that we have inside of us. And that inner critic is trying to keep us safe. It's assessing the judgments that we have towards ourselves, our inner circles, like our families, our friends, our communities, and then like our like global community, like what the judgments are, so that we are not judged and feel like we're outcasts. Um,
And I want to pause you there and say the reason why we're doing that, because like, yes, we want to be safe, and also we want to be connected. We are human beings who like want to be in connection and maintain that safety.
yes. So that's the other end here, right? If you allow the inner critic side to be heard, or maybe even knowing it's there, but tapping into why it's there, or not even why it's there, but the purpose it serves is to allow all the other parts of us to exist once we find that safety. Um, in the goal of connection, connecting with ourselves, the people around us. So really, the inner critic, it's a lot like if you are someone with anxiety, or if you've heard people talk about anxiety, it's not always helpful, right? It's just something that pops up, and you can choose whether or not you want to listen to it.
Yeah.
So this is an invitation to decide if your inner critic is someone that you want to pay attention to or not. And honestly, in the process of self attunement, you can intentionally attune to the other voices. So, how do we do that? Right? This
Yeah.
sounds like some pretty heavy work here.
Yeah, and it is definitely um, some heavy work, and that's why I think it's important to, again, like what we were saying, do it in doses, take it easy, take it slow. Um, One thing that this specifically really aligns with is internal family systems, which you know is something that I pull from in my work and as a person. And when we talk about that muddiness, so that times when like you find that you are like in the thick of it, you don't know what part is you, what part isn't, that's when we want to say in IFS that we're blended with the part. So that muddiness is us blending. So like imagine like your inner critic and you and they are all over the place. So this is when we want to see if we can unblend. So, something that can be helpful to kind of break this down is these check ins. So, instead of us waiting until we are in the thick of it to try and get to figure out who are you? Why are you here? What's going on? Um,
Mm-hmm.
we can't really do that when we're in those really deep emotions. So, when we are overtaken by judgment, we don't always have enough of ourself present in that moment to like expand and like be like, oh, what's happening here? So, and like oftentimes you'll find that that's the case. Like sometimes we need space from the experience to assess it. And sometimes that's retroactively. Sometimes we don't have space like very close after, and that's okay. But what we want to do is set aside time to be in our own energy. That's like my first recommendation. So before even like getting into the space of like checking in with ourselves, is there time in your day where you get to just like be with yourself? Like sometimes that might look like when you're in the bathroom. Sometimes that might look like when you're like getting ready to go to bed. Maybe that looks like when you're just waking up in the morning. Maybe it's in the car right before you leave for work, or on the bus or the train, or where, you know, whatever this little moment looks like. But taking a moment to feel just like what's your energy like am I noticing any sensations, am I noticing any thoughts, any feelings, any urges, is there any things that are sticking with me, like anything that happened this week that's really like on my mind. um that is what I would start with, like getting familiar with that landscape.
Yeah,
um
like cracking the door open just a bit, peeking
yeah.
in, like start letting yourself see yourself.
Yeah, and separate from IFS, Jen, what might this look like just for a check-in?
Yeah. Um, being able to know when to pause is a huge thing, um, which means listening to yourself. So, my mom has this really cool way of describing it. If you feel like something doesn't feel right, if your intuition tells you that, or there's like something pops up in you that says no, actually step back. Like take a physical step back if you're able, um, so that you can pause. Another way of doing this is like verbally swallow. Give yourself the chance to cleanse, but also you can't speak when you're swallowing. Um,
Take a breath,
so taking it, yes, another way.
like a sigh.
Um, yeah, an intentional sigh can be really helpful, very cleansing.
And what I love about like what that stepping back, that physical part of it is like you're using your body to help shift you a little bit out of an experience, like giving yourself literal
Mm-hmm.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm saying here is know when to pause means know when something isn't right. It's okay that it doesn't feel right, and you can give yourself the chance to assess why.
Yeah. Yeah. Giving yourself permission.
No, I told you we were recording.
Knowing when to pause.
Hmm. Man, where were we?
Give me a second.
Yeah,
Okay, so we were talking about
I
the
just said
chicken.
something great, and you were gonna jump in.
I know. I don't know. It just like I was gonna
Hmm.
say knowing when to something, but I don't know what it was.
We have the chance to pause.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to actually step back and assess for yourself.
Yeah, patience. Like allowing yourself a moment of like not being so hasty about something like in that moment because again this might we might not all have these moments where we're having like this oh no oh moment but like giving yourself
Yeah.
the permission, that's the word, permission,
Mm.
to have that pause, like even the permission to do that, that space to just consider it takes time to get
Yeah.
to that, but like there's so much power in that pause.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that power is your personal power.
Mhm.
Like, Ronnie, thank you for pointing that out. Like, not everyone's gonna feel like a sudden urge, like, whoa, I'm uncomfortable.
Because
But it's
you're
something that you can, yeah,
I was gonna say your mom has like probably cultivated a relationship with herself where she's able to know that felt sense that she's having is signaling to her hesitance. Like there's a like, it's
mm-hmm.
signaling to her that I need to pause instead of like
Yeah.
moving with haste.
Yes, and what we're talking about here, like we will build this the felt sense. That's absolutely something that we will do in this season. But right now we're at the part of seeing ourselves.
Yeah.
And what that can look like is even if the interaction felt fine, let's say you're at work and you get back to your office after a meeting, asking yourself, what did I actually think? Right? Was I okay with how this went? Am I happy with the outcome? Um, maybe physically, how am I feeling? Why am I sweating? That felt fine, right? I thought it went well,
Yeah.
um, but physiologically, I'm getting a different signal. So it's giving yourself the chance to listen to your intuition, tune into what your intuition might be saying if you gave it the chance to talk, and knowing when to do that, which is any time.
Yeah.
Really, that's the key here. You can check in with yourself at any time, any point.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be doing deep inner work, having a journal, having your phone open for a voice memo, doing it
Yeah.
once a week, doing it once a day, if that's where you are at in your own healing journey, whenever it feels right. There's never a wrong time.
Yeah. And like these things can be sporadic. Like I think there is realness in the fact that like these things don't need to be done like every day to still be helpful supports. Like I'll be the first to admit I do not journal every day. I do not journal every week. But like I will have moments where there is a needed space for that and I allow that space to like be taken up for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um Whereas in the past, I think I was like felt like I needed to do a lot more of the journaling, and like I think there was times in my life where I did need more consistent space in that way, and it ebbs and flows. So like again, this is from a practice of being able to tend to my needs and respond to them effectively. I don't need to like force it or like really dictate it as heavily anymore. But with time comes the ability to have more fluidity and flexibility in how you meet your needs in the plethora of ways that you can meet your needs. And again, this comes from a place of privilege to have space in my life to sit down and do these things. So, like, adjust according to where you're at. The needs you might be meeting might be those basic needs sometimes. It might be getting food, water, shelter. Those things are going to take precedence over being able to journal about that. Like, we're not expecting this crazy contrast between your lived experience and the skills that we're offering to you. Like,
Again, it's
acknowledging.
cracking the door open into who you are and what your needs are, so that you can
Yes.
authentically show up as yourself,
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
actually like embody that and know what that means, rather than it feeling like super
Yeah.
cliche.
Yeah. And I want to also, I think, separate from before we move on in this conversation from um, into like the next section of what we might cover, I wanted to talk about like safety,
Hmm.
um, and what that is or what that looks like. Um, and at first, I was going to define what safety looked like in the body, like the felt sense of safety. And then I sat with it and I was like, you know what? That's actually pretty difficult to identify if you're not ever really used to feeling it or articulating it when you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to start with what safety does not feel like, because I think a lot of us are more familiar with how it presents, whether we're consciously aware of that happening or not. So I'm
Yeah.
going to name a couple things, and Jen, feel free to add more if there's anything that like comes to mind that I have not named. I'm just doing like the things that came to the top of my head. So not breathing or holding your breath signals to me in some way there is dysregulation happening. So like if I'm holding my breath, like that tells me that there's some maybe lack of safety happening potentially. Again, these are going to they're not going to be hard and fast things I'm saying here. Pacing, like literally pacing, fidgeting, unable to sit still, again, like barring things that we know also impact that, like if that's not your norm, pacing, moving around, racing thoughts, scrambled, like unable to really pin down an idea, articulate answers to questions, like, very scrambled. Haste, like when we're just feeling on edge, like we need to be somewhere quickly, like moving through our life like a tornado, not being able to pause, slow down, make these moves, sweating. Sometimes that might show up in our palms, it might show up in our pits, it might show up in our body. Heart racing, changes in our heart rate, feeling that in our body in different places. And then like upset stomach and GI issues, I think also, again, barring any food or dietary or otherwise related things that might cause that, that to me signifies, again, dysregulation, which I think our body also, it can be tied into that experience of not safe.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add to that is anger and irritability.
Yeah.
Um, because irritability is a sign of depression. Um, it also is an indicator that our nervous system is elevated. And then anger is a call to action saying that we are unsafe. We need to do something about it. The fight response.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, Also, low emotionality can be another signal too.
Yeah,
Um,
numbness.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And lastly, like going with the flow of things, even when you don't like said flow, but feeling like you have to.
Yeah. Mm. So,
So we want to be able to acknowledge that that list exists within us,
yes.
and recognize that those can be actually a beautiful way to pause, like knowing when to pause when any of those things are happening. Um, Literally or figuratively is taking a step back, but it's really like giving yourself that permission to attune to the part of you that is feeling that way, so it can shed light on what you need to help you realign with the version of yourself that feels safe and feels whole and
Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah. And like let these all be moments, like Jen said, for pause or for data or anything like that you might be able to take from that.
Yeah.
And I
And
won't.
in this pause, we're not doing much. We're really just thinking about what just happened. We're feeling what just happened. If you need something to help you stay in that moment, and these are like moment, right? Like it doesn't need to be longer than 5 seconds and you have enough data. But putting your hand on your heart is a beautiful way, especially when it comes to self attunement and our authentic selves. Like we have a huge abundance of energy here for self love and loving others right here in our chest and our hearts. So if you put your hand there, you're already increasing your intentional awareness that we're trying to cultivate in this pausing moment. So it can keep you dropped in there if your inner critic is getting too loud. It also is signaling that little bit of compassion that you can keep for yourself when the inner critic is talking. So you can help, like it helps you move in that direction of assessment instead of self hatred.
Yeah. Mm. I also want to like shout out to anybody who like needs a little bit more stimulation than maybe just hands on heart. I know I'm someone who sometimes needs just like more. So like butterfly taps, bilateral
Mm-hmm.
stimulation can be similar. I like taking like EFT kind of hands and like going up and down the like
Emotion focused
core.
tapping is EFT.
Yeah. And like we're not doing like the whole like EFT like going through and like going through that sequence. Again, if we're in the moment, I think simple is easiest. Like whatever
Mm-hmm.
is the most simple. And while you're here doing this tapping, you might like say like I've got me or I'm safe or like any of those words like love, like anything that feels affirming. And I love like even if like bringing your hands and making them warm and then like
Mm-hmm.
touching the heart space or the face can feel really just like gentle. um
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Mm.
another one too that has been really aligning with people lately that I work with is the gorilla taps. So you don't even need to do anything or say anything other than like, "Ooh, I'm not feeling good right now." And what the gorilla taps do is it talks to our mammalian brain and it lets out a primal release that we all are seeking, especially when we have energy stored up in our body. So you go all the way up and down. You can go down to your feet, work your way all the way back up, um, or wherever you have access to. But the gorilla taps, and it's kind of hard, right? As you're not trying to hurt yourself, but it's enough energy, like right? Like you can actually hear what I'm doing, and it just helps you kind of get all of that pent up energy flowing again, so that you can have some energy that you can choose to again that intentional awareness shift towards collecting data or getting you back on track to how you were feeling before the moment of dysregulation occurred.
Mm-hmm. And you're just doing this up and down the
Mm-hmm.
body. Are you making
Yeah.
any noises while you're doing that?
Ooh, you can if you want to, but you don't have to. You can have your mouth open and that lets out hot air, or as you're doing it, you can breathe in um, through pursed lips, kind of like you're breathing in and out through a straw, so that you can bring cooling air.
Mm.
Cooling is calming for our nervous
Yeah.
system.
Mm. Love that.
Yeah.
Definitely love some cooling breaths and letting out that heat. So even if you combine those, so like you're bringing in
Mm.
cool and you're letting out heated breath. Um, like in yoga, we do like lion's breath, so like letting your tongue out and just letting out that heat. So if like you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
hot, sometimes when we're feeling like you're feeling anger can bring people to heat pretty quick. So that can be a nice cool down. But
Yeah, literally
with
cooling.
literally. And then I'm going to circle back to just the beginning of that little section, which was what does safety look like or feel like in the somatic body? And I brought up just a couple of examples of what that might feel like or what that might look like that people might have a similar experience of. So, like, safety can feel like singing alone in your car, in your shower.
Mm-hmm.
Safety can feel like breathing with ease, like just not having to like do any effortful. It's just very like Very light, very easy. Hugs from loved ones might feel
Mm.
like safe. Cuddling with a furry friend or animal companion might feel really comfortable. Some people said it's like taking a nice mineral bath and just soaking in water and kind of like feeling tension and stress kind of leave the body.
Mm-hmm.
Some people said it's like having sunshine shining through the window or through and on your face and just feeling like the warmth kind of radiating into your body. So all of these are just like little examples of like moments that can feel like safety. Like it could be really simple as well, like your favorite comfort meal, or it might feel like a weighted blanket or X, Y, or Z. It might feel like going from being out in the cold to stepping into warmth and feeling that shift.
And what's so cool about this is when you feel safe, you are embodied,
Yeah.
which means you are in your the lived experience of you in your world, which means that you are attuned to yourself. So safety really is attunement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we could all feel as confident as we feel when we are alone singing in the car,
Hmm.
I mean, that would be incredible. Um, and this is also a good segue into like the next area of like how to attune to ourselves. Like another access point is like reflecting on our own needs and our own perspectives, and that would be like the comfort meal, the things that make us feel safe, right? Those are our we're talking about our needs when it comes to being our authentic selves. It's doing those things. Um, Figuring out your hobby is a great way to figure out what your hobbies are if you don't really know or you're feeling unsure. Think about what you like to do as a child. If you had access to free time, or maybe when you were at school, how did you spend your time when you weren't being educated?
Like Jen and High School Musical dance salongs.
Mm-hmm. If only.
Hey, you could come back.
Mm-hmm.
But hobbies are a great way to regulate and plug in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like it's basically about like, okay, what do I need to feel balanced? What do I need to feel fulfilled? And giving yourself to explore like how that can connect to like the broader sense of yourself. So let's say like if you played piano or you liked listening to piano when your piano teacher would play, or your I'm sorry, music teacher would play it, any instrument. Um, you can think about, okay, well, can I do anything with piano now to help me feel like an embodied, self-attuned version of self? Um, just playing piano music in the background. See like how that makes you feel.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Mm,
So things that provide you with comfort, trying to integrate them more regularly to help you feel more balanced and more fulfilled throughout the day.
mm, yeah,
And then another one is cultivating curiosity and letting go of judgment. That
yeah.
in itself is like the $1 million question, right? Um, it's what we're really talking about with that one, taking the fluff away, is how can you approach your inner experiences with curiosity rather than judgment. And we talked about this last season too.
Yeah.
But Ronnie, I think you might have some interesting perspectives into how to cultivate that openness to self.
Oh, I think it's all of these things that we're doing. It's the simple act of beginning to engage in activities that create curiosity. Like what might that be is different for everyone, I think. But I think it kind of goes into that felt sense of like noticing, when do I feel curious and connected, and uh when when am I leaning, like when does judgment come up for me? um
Mm-hmm.
so beginning to understand
Yes.
that relationship.
When we feel curious, we feel safe. Any child who is able to create art within their curiosity about creating, that's where they find safety. So many people cope through their self-expression.
Yeah.
So self-expression could be a great way to tap into your self-attunement too.
Yeah, and think like allowing yourself to lean into doing things poorly, or lean into doing things bad, or like lean into just like not being great at everything. I think that can reduce some of the judgment if we let go of some of the expectation in some scenarios. Um, But I think cultivating curiosity really begins with being able to cultivate the safety, like we talked about, like starting to like ground into some of those like different physical embodiments. um
Mhm. What you said, Ronnie, was the simple act of beginning.
yeah,
Yeah. Giving yourself the chance to start.
yeah,
And that can be with being curious. It also can be with checking in, the first check in that you have with yourself, like giving yourself the permission to begin.
yeah. Mm,
Mhm. And begin bravely, right? That's the other thing, too. Like offering yourself the gentleness, like being brave enough to be gentle with parts of yourself that you haven't spoken to before,
yeah,
or that like you hear but you haven't interacted with.
yeah, like you don't have
Um,
any relationship with these parts other than like maybe ignoring them or pushing them away, like these pieces of
yeah.
yourself, because they're not comfortable
Mm-hmm.
emotional or physical experiences, so they get kind of like pushed down or aside, which doesn't help to embark on understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then embracing all parts of yourself.
yeah.
That's another really, really tough one, right? Another $1 million question. That's like the fountain of youth, if it could ever be found.
And this,
The idea, though, is yeah.
no, no,
Go ahead,
you're
Ronnie.
good, you're good.
Okay. The big thing that I was gonna highlight is like being able to diffuse the inner tension that's going on within us, so that we can have that emotional balance. So like, what do you need to do to blow out the flame? Or maybe you can imagine the inner tension is like fogginess inside of you. And you can kind of move your hands through the fog so you can start to see, right? What do we need to do in order to be able to allow that fog, that mist to expand, create more space within ourselves so that we can be with ourselves, embody ourselves, and offer that love. And my Reiki hands just really started tingling here. Um, so, in layman's terms, right, people who may not be used to the like self connection thing, um, what can this look like? Embracing all parts of ourselves. Maybe IFS can clue us in on that.
So I don't need, like, for me, again, it comes to like what come to my mind is acceptance and commitment therapy. So I think like that came to mind for some reason, or like even just like radical, like the word acceptance just came to mind. And like I think it's less like, yes, we're embracing all parts of ourself. Like what does embracing look like? That's warm, that's like inviting in, that's turning toward. So that with parts, it's like turning towards the parts and holding space for them. That might mean like feeling the experiences, it might be like being with them. But I also think of like accepting the parts and how they're showing up.
Ooh, so does it need to be a huge task? Like, Ronnie, what I'm hearing from you is like we can actually approach it by focusing on what an embrace is and allowing everything, all that turmoil within us to be happening, and offer it a hug. Offer it acceptance in the sense of like, I don't need to accept all of these emotions because a lot of them are uncomfortable. You don't need to do that for yourself yet. It's just accepting they're all there and allowing yourself to embrace yourself through it. Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, I feel like, because like if what we're doing actively all the time is ignoring or pushing away or shoving down, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
reduce those things from doing what they're doing. It still continues. It's just like rejecting is also happening. Um, so like we just like it's exactly that. Just embracing the parts as they are, because like some emotions are uncomfortable and some experiences are uncomfortable. And in the moments where we're feeling overwhelmed with them, we can't do the work of trying to like change things like in the midst of panic or in the midst of like this like deepness. Like when you're in the wave, we don't have space to do the connecting with the parts. But that's when shows up those daily check-ins and shows up that's when the part of like actually connecting with the parts separate from when they're just doing the judging or doing the inner critic or doing the whatever job it is they have. It's showing up and being like curious, if we can be. If we're not curious, we can't really do a lot of work within the part realm. Like if we don't have that self isn't present, and we need self to be there. So like
Mm-hmm.
we want to be doing those check-ins with ourself. We want to start figuring out what the needs are. Because I hear you saying like, ooh, let's just like hold them and give ourselves like that hug. And I'm like, yes, and these
Mm-hmm.
parts might not need that hug. They might need something else. But that's what all that work kind of lends itself to, of the getting to know yourself and starting to understand your needs, is like, oh, when this comes up, it needs this. So like say like panic comes up and we're like, oh, I really would benefit from like physical touch, or I might benefit from words of affirmation, or I might benefit from like taking a pause. Like we learn how to engage with these parts only by beginning to engage with them, whether or not they engage back. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Because
Say
like,
more.
so like we're building a relationship with these parts of ourself that we don't typically want to connect with. So we have to like
Mm-hmm.
learn about them too. We have to like learn about, why does this anxiety come up for me when I am starting a task, like a new task. It's like, I wonder why. And it might be coming up because I am afraid of failure, and I'm afraid of judgment, and I don't want to be disconnected from my peers, and I don't want to be like on the outside. So it's like I want to maintain connection. I want to maintain some kind of safety in this dynamic, or I want to control how I'm perceived. But it's protective. It's protective in some
Mm-hmm.
way, shape, or form. Um, so it's like,
You know what's yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say what's so cool about this is like it's not even like yes, we have all of these experiences that happen within us that are uncomfortable, but the really cool thing about self attunement is that it is present focused. So yes, we can be having these experiences that are really uncomfortable, and we are through the self attunement work, we are aware of how we can feel inspired, creative, curious, in tune with ourselves, confident, um, feel like ourselves, right? Like
Yeah.
we're able to meet these. It's almost like a pairing, like you're pairing back and forth, right? Like a sword fight, but in a fun, playful way, if you allow it to be,
Mm-hmm.
between the part of you who is that inner critic and the part of you who has learned how to be so self-expressive and learned like what you can do in order to feel most like yourself. And I know it sounds like a huge thing to say, I feel most like myself. That could be like sitting on the couch with your favorite snack watching a movie.
I
Um,
also want to like
yeah,
pause you here and like circle
sure.
into internal family system has 8 C's, which are the quality of self. And I just think it's interesting because you're naming all of like so many of them
Mm-hmm.
already. And I want you to know that if we have compassion present, if we have curiosity present, calmness, clarity, creativity, confidence, courage, or connectedness, any of them, like any singular one of them, that means self is present in some way. If you are able to be
Ooh.
compassionate, that means self is on board. If you're able to be curious towards these parts, self. Calm, self. Clarity, yourself is on board. You're feeling creative, yourself is on board. You're feeling
You know,
confident,
yeah,
self.
I'm feeling creative right now. And I'm thinking, because the next thing is mindfulness techniques. And that's how it kind of like we put the bow on beginning this experience with self attunement. Maybe Ronnie and I need to be making some beautiful mindfulness meditations that y'all can use throughout this season so that you can like cue yourselves into what we're talking about along this journey of self attunement and seeing yourselves.
Yes, we definitely will have some things that will be following up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all of that to say, like, keep an eye out for those things. And like any of these things being on board means that yourself is on board. So that means you're in a place where you can do that work and you can actually connect with the parts because you have that space available. So, but also know that we all have these qualities present in us, in ourselves, all of the time. You don't have to do anything to achieve them. They're already yours. They're already in here.
Yeah.
We are just working to help these things shine through us and let them be the parts that are leading our system, like helping our system to be like recalibrated back to its natural frequency is what we're doing. Like you're already attuned, you're just like we're saying, we're tuning ourselves back to that harmonious rhythm that's already
Yes.
innately yours.
I think, wait, Ronnie, the what you just hearing you say that. Sorry, I got so excited about it. The It's like when a dog is out playing and they are just so happy frolicking in a beautiful field and they hear a dog whistle. Um that is the attunement, the alignment to I have a job to do, a job that's innately within me, and they take off, right? They go and they engage with that. And like as humans, right, it's hearing that, like if you listen to whatever frequency really aligns with you, if you do sound healing, your favorite music, if someone says something that excites you, it's that feeling, that pull to be yourself and to gift yourself with engaging with what's giving you that excitement and that joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be a little playful puppy in the field. I dare ya.
Mm. So yeah, like I think this circles back to like I love when this happens. Like we are going to be attuning, we are going to be like turning on, plugging in, all of those things. And like before we get to the end of this episode, we have a couple like little things we're going to be doing before we end. So Jen,
Yeah. Hmm.
might we move into our mindfulness techniques? Now that you've kind of brought that up, I feel like it's the perfect time for us to talk about how you might incorporate some of these techniques into your life and what that could look like potentially.
Yeah, honestly, I think we already did this when we first started talking about self attunement, what to do. Um, it is like that somatic movement. If that isn't accessible to you, if you're around other people, if you're not like feeling willing to engaging with these types of mindfulness activities, something else that you can do too is closing your eyes and don't even need to do anything. Just close your eyes. Give yourself the chance to disconnect from one type of stimulus, which is vision. Another thing you can do is with your eyes open, you can cover your ears, right? Try to cut off some of the external noise that you're hearing.
You can put your feet
There's
on the ground, super
Put your feet on the
grounding,
ground.
bring you into the moment, into your space.
Yep. Another one can be affirmations. Telling yourself what you need to hear.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. If you say, your inner voice is saying, I hate you. I hate myself. That inner critic saying, I don't want to hate myself. It's not I love myself, right? It's saying, I don't want to hate myself. So saying what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing too could be, um, if not affirmations, you can offer yourself your favorite little like moment of sweetness. um, Letting yourself scroll on your phone can be another way. So like these are all different ways that we can like tap into that feeling in our little hearts. um, Go see what your friend sent you in Messenger. um, Text a friend, call a friend, allow yourself to reconnect with your community. A lot of times if we aren't connected with ourselves, we are closed off to the world around us and to our community. So even if you aren't feeling connected to yourself, try working it backwards, right? Tap into the community and maybe that'll help you feel like you again. Because the people in your life are hopefully people that you chose and they help you feel like you
Yeah, and
and inspired.
they're like mirrors. We talked about this before. Like they reflect back to us parts of ourselves, and I think that we can attune ourselves through our friends and our family and our community for sure. Like if we're feeling out of alignment, getting plugged into your community or into your people can really help to bring us back into things.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then I want to give you one more offering.
yeah,
You can have a running note in your phone, or if you have a cute little journal, wherever you want to do this, even just a mental note. Um, every day at one of your meal times, just ask yourself, how am I feeling? And just there's no pressure, right? Even if a feeling doesn't come to mind, just notice that experience of I don't know, or it's hard for me to figure out how I'm feeling, or I feel stressed, right? Just be aware of just the awareness. Cute, like again, tuning in like a radio station. Allow yourself to get in tune with what's going on
yeah,
in your heart.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And then one last little bit on self attunement before we head into our little see as laters.
Mm,
So, by practicing self attunement, you can develop a stronger connection with yourself, which leads to improved emotion regulation and a more balanced life overall.
mm,
There's less of that push and pull happening within us. And rather than a sword fight, it's fun, like sword play. Like we're just practicing,
mm,
right? We're going back and forth for fun, learning about ourselves, finding our strength through that. Um, and this also can help you lay the groundwork for a better attunement to others in your community, the people around you, and enhance your empathy towards yourself, towards others, and really help you just be a social, happy little being out in the world
mm.
by being your authentic self. I'll
Yay.
plug that in. So yeah, we have some really fun things coming up. With that being said, we are going to be working on a self-attunement series. Brittany,
Yes,
if you want
stay tuned.
to.
Sorry. But yes, we are going to have an attunement series on YouTube and Instagram. Instagram, it will be Reels. It will be a shorter content form on Instagram. It will also, I think, end up being either a short video and or some kind of short form content. Um,
Yeah, which we will also be sharing on YouTube. Might be a little bit
yes.
longer, but most likely shorter. Just like fun little digestible
Yeah, like
pieces that
quick
we can
bits.
chew on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would keep your eyes open. We're going to do some heart opener things over the next couple of weeks to really tie into our authenticity. We
Mm-hmm.
will be tying in a couple different like Reiki elements into it as well, just being that that's kind of the avenue that Jen and I like to take. So keep an eye just open for all of those things. I know for me, I will be offering a heart opener, like short yoga along with like a heart frequency like tuning kind of happening. And I know Jen had some offerings for meditation that we will be doing as well. So
Yeah.
keep an eye out as those kind of trickle throughout the season. We're both excited to begin creating and putting those things into the world. So
And we're so
yeah.
grateful to have this community to be like sharing it with and starting off with. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely keep an eye out. I know on our link tree, we will have different worksheets available and different things linked there from our first pop up. So keep an eye out if you're looking for any kind of fun little introductory information on Reiki. But as we are getting ready to bid you all a farewell, just remember that self awareness is your compass. It guides you back to your center, and understanding your own rhythms is a true strength to navigate your emotions and reactions.
Join us next time as we dive deeper into the human experience. Until then, breathe, find balance, and know that you're not alone on this journey.
Love this episode? Share it with a friend who wants to learn how to self attune, and maybe send them some of our self attunement series if it feels good.
If it feels good, right? Let's ride those waves of awareness together.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in. Stay mindful, stay present, and keep exploring that extraordinary world within. And until then, catch you on the trails.
Catch you on the trails.